What's so bad about right and wrong? Hi, my name is Ted Rosenblatt, and I'm with my father, Dr. Rod Rosenblatt, and this is Talks with Dad Rod. So, our questions can sometimes be so simplistic, you aren't even sure where we're headed with it. But the thing we can see a lot that there is a dynamic that can play out in church where law and gospel, from our Lutheran perspective, which we believe is the proper focus on what we receive in God's word, law and gospel, for the sake of sinners, for their salvation, can be supplanted with sort of a moralistic or ethical sort of view from the human perspective, and you end up in a right-wrong paradigm instead, which is tempting to us sinners when you're in a position like that, but it's also dangerous.
Sure.
In how, well, you tell me.
The devil's an ethicist. A good one. That attack on Luther he mentioned in the last episode. In most people, I had a friend of mine who was a psychoanalyst, and he said, in most people, the poles in the psyche are good-bad. Then he used the German to illustrate, because he was talking about me working with Germans. He said, in the German, it's right-wrong, not good-bad. And he said, what that means is live your life carefully amongst Germans. They'll fire you without a thought. Be careful.
Now, you have, across the course of your career, spoken with enough other leaders in other denominations, and we hear stories. We have heard stories from them. I got to be in the room, luckily, hearing a lot of this stuff directly about how other denominations, but I don't want to say denominations, but other nationalities, can have that same sort of dynamic in play.
Yes,
the Dutch was mentioned once.
Yeah,
and so it's not particular. We like to. So we have German in our background. I a little bit more than my dad, and so it's easy for us to kind of, come after the Germans in particular, but it's something that's born of sin. It's really something that's it's an Adam and Eve. It came from Adam and Eve. It comes from the fall.
It's a matter of emphasis on a particular syllable.
And what ends up happening, we've witnessed it over time, is it's easy for us to fall into a track of where the preaching is affected by that. The message that people receive ends up being more like that. Right? And you get away from the model of what Dad tries to do, and hopefully you pick up here in this show, which is a bartender pouring a glass of wine or something with a liberal wrist, even to the point of it overflowing your cup, which I like the imagery of, because we who are neat and tidy don't like that. It makes messy. We don't want messy. Why make messy? That's a waste. And the God of the universe likes messy. Yeah. And does pour with a liberal wrist in regard to his grace. Yeah. And what we can run into, right, in the church under this paradigm is something where it's away from this generous bartender and towards make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's like you've got a schoolmaster and you're going to get tested. And it's a spirit. It's not literal. Yeah, right. Right. But it can feel like that. You can feel like you're in the room with someone like that. Like, make sure, there's a wagging finger somewhere in there. You're feeling it. Yeah. That's weird. And it makes Christianity hard.
Well, yeah. And that sort of poison of the gospel is the sort of thing that gives the impression throughout the Western culture that Christianity is a way of life, and you're trying to do it well. Well, sort of, but the basic message is the issue or the image of the bartender and pouring with a generous wrist. And if you ask the culture, that's 1,000 miles away from what they think Christianity is. 1,000 miles.
What if Christianity was more like that? And I would say it'd probably be better to say poisoning of the gospel, because gospel is the actual solution. So it's kind of like a tainting of it. Yeah. So you want to get the good news. You want to get the good stuff. but there's this taint in it. There's this added element that sort of makes it extra bitter or something, and you're not liking it.
Well, it really is a confusion
and it kind of
of
sits
law
in your
and
mouth
gospel.
when you go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a confusion of law and gospel. If I don't go to church and hear the gospel of Christ crucified for me, give me about 3 Sundays and I'll be gone and on the search for another parish.
Well, what if you hear the gospel, but you can't have it be too gospel-y, right? You got to make sure that
that's fear.
Okay.
That's fear.
But imagine that the preacher is taking that wine right up to the line, like on the Guinness glass. It's going to come right up to that point, but it's not going to go any further. You're not going to go all the way to the rim, lest you spill a drop. And, it kind of reminds me in spirit a little bit of what we hear in the parable of the wicked servant. You've got this thing where you're like super carefully measuring all the stuff.
Right.
Rather than being overflowing and ridiculous about it.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
That this is that the God of the universe is giving it so freely and is trying to and is working this for your good in all these ways.
Yeah, we're headed toward Epiphany Sunday. Now, if you're a Lutheran, don't expect much because our seminaries have no courses in apologetics. And it shows on Epiphany. The Epiphany is the apologist Sunday. When Jesus is called upon when the wine is running low at the wedding and his mother asks him to intercede, and he does.
Even though he says it's not his time.
Right.
The God of the universe says it's not my time and then goes kind of oh, fine.
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah, and 90 gallons of the good stuff he makes out of water.
Dirty wash water.
And turns loose for everybody's enjoyment. I mean, that is the reason the apologist likes Epiphany is because the earliest Christians argued primarily to the Jew from the Old Testament messianic prophecies that he was the fulfillment of them, and to the Greek, to the Gentile miracle. And here's the emphasis, this one on to the Gentile, miracle.
And starting with alcohol.
Yeah. First one was with a whole lot of alcohol and everybody already had their fill. That is why I call it the Apologist Sunday.
But see, that sense of joy, that sense of giving even more than is needed. There's already been plenty, and we're going to get even more now.
Yep.
And it's going to get even better than you asked for.
Yep.
No one expected that.
Yep.
Can you help us out because we're running out?
Uh-huh.
And everybody I think we all sort of think in our daily lives in terms of, if you just give me enough, I'll be good. And Jesus comes in and goes, I'm going to back up the truck.
Yep.
There's more. We're going to do much more than that. We're going to give you way more than even that. And the right-wrong paradigm tends to seem to have a spirit of fencing that so
Yes.
that you don't make a mess.
Yes.
Fencing it so that you don't run amok.
Or that you don't abuse grace.
Right. To use it as license to sin all the more, because that is petrifying to those who are in that realm.
Yeah.
The right and wrong, that's very wrong.
Yep.
Paul said it. So
Yep.
we gotta make sure that we do just enough grace.
Yeah.
Just enough this good stuff.
Don't blame that on Paul.
Well, I'm not. But I'm saying that's how it's used.
Yep.
And what we're doing is saying this news about what you're hearing, about who Jesus is really, is far greater. In this culture, how much sense does it make for a guy? It makes more sense. And how good news is that for you that you go to this wedding and this guy gives you way more. And you're already doing, the wine's gone, so you're already doing really good. You're feeling great.
At no cost.
At no cost. And he does this miracle of creating the best wine and so much of it that you could end up with an episode, it could look like the movie of The Hangover potentially. It's just like way out there. In this culture, how much sense does that make? Where you say, this is the God of the universe who does this thing at this party for you.
Yep.
For you. So God does this amazing thing with alcohol for you when you've already had plenty. And we Lutherans, of course, love this because it matches us perfectly with our beer and our liquor and our wine and so forth. We don't have an issue with this. And But it's everybody is happy. Everybody's like, really? And what if that spirit was what you got in the gospel at church?
What if that were the way that the culture understood Christianity?
Well, that would be a natural extension of that. You go to church and that's what you get, and you're like, tell me you wouldn't be like, well, that's not what I thought Christianity was based on my experience, right? That your experience is no. It's a bunch of bunged up tight guys who aren't going to let me this and they're not going to let me that, and they're going to watch over me and make sure that I'm doing this new list of things to do as part of the church and the Christian faith, and rules based, and you better this and you better that, and don't do this and don't do that. And in that spirit, you just kind of go, oh man, that's heavy. And what if we say, well, what if I gave you a different take on Christianity? And we talk like this, and then people go, I know because I've heard this. That's not what I've heard or understood about Christianity at all, right? How many of you? So what if it was like that? The bartender that's just like, let's kick you down an extra shot, right? And I know, we use the alcohol thing because, and I know, we obviously work and flex with those who are not able to do that sort of thing. We would pour extra coffee in the morning for those who don't drink alcohol or whatever, right? Or tea or whatever is your thing. So the paradigm still works, even if it's a different, liquid in the glass. You should still have happy coffee. We do that all the time too. So hope this is helpful for you. Hope this brings you joy and hope, and that this is something where you go, huh. So come to 1517.org for more, and find us on social media, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Dad Rod, part of the 1517 Podcast Network. This podcast and all 1517's content is made possible through financial support by listeners just like you. Please visit 1517.org for more, and please consider clicking on the donate button and making a recurring or one-time contribution to help us share this good news in a world which so desperately needs it.